Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. Have you gone through a divorce, a breakup, a heartbreak, lost yourself, lost your voice and who you are, felt powerless, hopeless, and didn't know how to get yourself back and were so afraid to make a change or transition that you stayed in something you knew was really a slow death inside for you? This episode is for you. So many of us can relate to life transitions and heartbreaks, and then the fear of what's next, starting over, being alone, being on your own. And I hope this episode provides you some inspiration. Charu Seth is a ICF certified life coach and relationship transition coach and author of She Stands Strong. A recently single divorced parent, Charu brings both professional expertise and lived experience to work. Having navigated profound personal transitions herself, she understands firsthand the uncertainty, emotional shifts, and identity changes that comes with major life change. She really has worked on herself. We talk about her therapy journey and what was the most helpful to her and how therapy was really life-changing for her and gave her the courage to find her voice, to make a transition, to know she could get through something. So we talked about identity and your identity being in roles, and then how you're relooking at your identity during, before, and after, and the length of time it takes us to make a transition sometimes. And then sometimes it's not our choice. And we're forced to make a transition that we didn't want. So without further ado, I hope this episode is inspirational, helpful, and helps you regain your voice and work through your fear. Thanks for joining us for this important episode. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so grateful you are here today for this important conversation with my guest. Charu, welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with you today. Thanks a lot.
Me as well. Thank you. Okay, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about your story and the mission you're on.
Okay, let's begin with where everything began. And, usually we try to say we identify ourselves as roles. And I always identified myself as in roles, which is being a wife, being a mom, being a stay-at-home parent. And that's how my life began. A working woman made a choice and a decision to raise a family. And during that process, something was lost. Identity. My identity was at stake. And I didn't know when it was taking away a very important part of me, which was my self-worth and confidence. So I was dealing with all of those things. And that's when I started questioning myself. I was a working woman, stay-at-home parent. What changed? Why did it change? And when that knocked on me, life was not easy because I was used to giving, not receiving. And that became my pattern. That was my default. And that needed an overhaul, I think, because inside there was a lot of resentment, anger, frustration, low self-worth, confidence, not being seen, not being appreciated, not being heard. Who was I? And that's where my role came in. Like, who am I? Who am I beyond that thing? I'm like nobody. I'm like, no one really knows me. Who am I? And that was my confusion. And that was when things started breaking apart for me. And that's what led to me standing up for myself, for who I am, for a voice, for asking more, for also being the one who wants to receive. And what happens when something like that happens? When you're used to something, when you're used to familiar patterns, when you're used to being comfortable, you're already pushing the envelope. You're pushing the envelope by saying, no, I want to break that pattern. I want to break that change. And that's what happened with me. I wanted to break that pattern and change because now I recognized me. Now I wanted more for me. Now I wanted to be seen, understood, appreciated, and acknowledged. And hell broke loose. That was something that cracked, which I thought was a solid foundation of a long term relationship, raising a family and a marriage. But it wasn't because it was built on what I was providing and giving and not the other way where I thought was supposed to be a very intentional partnership. It wasn't. So that is where everything happened. And that is where things shifted. I regained, not with a lot of, it wasn't rosy. It was tough, a lot of dark days, working on myself, going through mental health issues. I was struggling with depression. And I knew that I couldn't be in this phase. I didn't want to be in this phase. So, what's the most important thing one needs to do? Momentum, action. I believe that no action of inaction is also action, but it's not productive action. So I said, I got to do something about myself. I got to get myself out, not for anyone else, but for me. Because I was so bound by identity and the roles that was there that I had lost myself. I said, I want to regain everything back. That's what got me ahead. And years of therapy, years of coaching, having a coach by my side, everything fell into place then because I put myself first. I acknowledged and I respected myself first. So that was my first learning I had. If I do not respect myself, I cannot have anyone respect me. So my choices equals my respect. If I do not respect my choices, nobody is going to respect my choices too. So that was a very big awakening and a learning I had at that time. And from then on, I've been on this journey because I believe that having self-awareness is the first step that one can take, but with compassion, not with judgment. Because I went through judgment. I questioned myself so much that I beat myself, and I realized that was all that I knew at that time. Those were the resources that I had at that time. That was my experience and intelligence and the emotional capability I had at that time. That was my only coping mechanism. Once I started learning about shifting my identity and changing my roles and having boundaries is when I started learning that, hey, there's more to it, that my identity is not shaped and formed by who I am, where I am. My identity is shaped and formed by who I believe I want to be. So it is not what anyone else defines me. It's what I define myself. And I'm compassionate and I am proud of who I am. And that's where self-worth and confidence came in. So today, sometimes when I have those mental chatters, those self-doubts, which normally happens to everyone, and it's a process of this journey, I accept it. And I say, it's okay. You're having those concerns. I can understand it. Let's address it. So I have a lot of dialogues and conversations just with me. And I've seen that has given me a lot of clarity because I question myself not as judgment. I question myself to understand me better. So that in short is where I am today. I'm an identity and a transformational coach. And that's what I do. And I know there are many people like me out there who are going through these transitions in life and they're being silent warriors. I call them the silent warriors because they're fighting inner battle and an external battle. And it's this, both of these battles that they're fighting, and they're trying to pit one against the other and trying to choose which battle do I fight first. But there's no first, and then there's nothing right or wrong, one versus the other, because we'll always be fighting that. But what is important to believe is that what we're fighting, I'm worth it. I don't want anyone else fighting my battle because I know I'm worth fighting my own battle because I matter. And that was what at the end got me through. I said, I matter. not for my children, not for this family, not for this marriage. I matter for me. And that was empowering and liberating. And that's how I see myself today. Many of us are stuck in it. We don't have to be in that position. We can question ourselves and ask, do I matter?
I think what I find working with clients going through transitions is there's so much fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of not being able to take care of themselves, fear of being rejected, fear of being abandoned. I mean, there's so many fears that run the dialogue in our heads. And it's like a repeating, looping thought that we cannot, it feels like at the time we can't get past it. So, how do you help people work through fear? What did you do to work through your fears?
It's a very wonderful question to ask. When you've been for 20 years, you've been assigned to a role of being just a caretaker, taking care of everyone's needs. The first thing that you're fearful is you fear taking care of your needs and yourself. That's the first thing. And that's the first thing that I faced for myself was that fear translated into self-doubt that I'm better taking care of everyone else, but I cannot do this by myself. And that came in when I was at that crossroads where I had to choose between a marriage, a so-called marriage in the confines of what was expected and what was needed versus what do I need to grow and to feel emotionally safe in a relationship. I chose being emotionally safe. And that's when that fear of mine broke because I chose me. I was so scared to take that step for years. And I was living in that toxicity just for the fear that I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if I can do it. And I kept questioning myself and I kept beating myself through because I had low self-worth and confidence. But with coaching, with therapy, I had an amazing therapist who led me to this path of coaching herself. She saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. And she said, two things you have and are your powerhouses. You have empathy and you have intuition. You just need to tune into that and you will open doors that you will not know for yourself. And how empowering will that be? And I completely believe it because that was my first fear that I'm not good enough. And I wanted to break that I'm not good enough to I'm enough. And with therapy and coaching, that kind of was my first step.
So, what I find is people sit with this for years if they want to get out of something, or it can be the flip side where someone can be heartbroken by somebody else and they didn't see it coming, right? And then they're like, how do I heal from this? So, therapy and coaching help you heal. What specifically in therapy did you do that was the most helpful that led to your healing?
I think in therapy, I was just being me. I was being vulnerable. I saw vulnerability as a weakness. And in therapy, I started seeing vulnerability as my ally, my strength. Because when you talk about empathy, you need vulnerability too. They go hand in hand together. How can you not have one without the other? You need both. And I saw that because my past relationship was so embedded in judgment, was so embedded in being critical, was so embedded in you're not good enough, you cannot, was so embedded in those negative, I would say negative behavioral patterns that it became my blueprint, right? And it became like my DNA, like, no, I'm not. No, I cannot. No, of course not. This is all I can do. This is how limited I am. I was married to a very high achieving, narcissistic person and who was doing exceptionally well. But somewhere inside me, in my relationship, I was just another person helping them achieve what they wanted in life. So obviously, when there was no synergy, I felt like I'm not getting anything is because I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of it. And no matter how much I compensated, no matter how much I did, I'm never going to be good enough. I had that in my mind. I'm never, ever going to be at the capacity and functioning how I should be functioning with my partner because I'm not good enough. I can never be that. You see, I came from that. That was, I think about it today, and sometimes it infuriates me. Sometimes I'm like, I was never this person. How did I become that? Because I was used to the pattern of pleasing, wanting approval, validation, and self-worth was never something that I thought was had to be the most important thing. Respect was like negotiable. Respect was negotiable. Okay, if I do something good, will I be respected? Okay, I'll do that. If I don't do that, okay, I won't be respected. Okay, I won't do that. No, I mean, today I think about it and I'm like, oh my God, I did so much of disservice to myself. So therapy, when I did that, I learned about validation, that why should one look for validation when you know who you are? Why should I feel expressing myself, being vulnerable as a weakness when I can see that is the tool to help me regulate my emotions? That is something that helps and helps me gain clarity as well because I know who I am then. And why should I edit myself anymore to fit into someone's standard or someone's way of life? That's not me. That's their way of life. That's not my way of life. If they can't see it, it is on them. It is not me. I'm not going to edit myself. I don't want to edit myself anymore. So I was always trying to fit into those boxes, always, because that's the only way that I knew. And therapy taught me that you don't fit into boxes. You make your own space that makes you feel seen, heard, understood because you value you. And that was empowering to me. Was like my moment where I saw light and I said, yes, I can do it. I will do it. I want to do it. And I'm going to be on this path, on this journey with or without anyone.
Okay. So we have identity. You had this kind of people pleasing, caretaking. You had this sense of losing yourself
Yeah.
in these roles. Then
Yeah.
you had a critical, judgmental partner.
Yeah.
Then that became part of your belief system, kind of how you started to think. This is the key for people listening because did you think if I just did this, then it would get better? Then I would please him. If I just did XYZ, then he'll see my worth and value and acknowledge it. And then you realize, oh, he's never going to do that. That's not even on a possibility. How long did it take you to get from that thinking to the reality that was never going to happen? No matter what you did, it wasn't going to change it.
That's not easy. That's the part. You talk about fear. That's the fear because you really now have to separate what someone is showing versus what you want to believe who they are. That is reality right there. In my world, I had formed this version of him, which was he's successful, he's ambitious, he's driven, he's a good guy, looks after his family, he provides a home, he provides shelter, he provides whatever we need. And at the basic level, what a relationship or a family needs, which is emotional safety. Is he able to provide that? That was non-existent. And I kept covering up. I kept covering up those inadequacies for, oh, you know what? He's a good person. He's not physically abusive to me. I didn't understand emotional abuse to that extent, which later I did understand that it was very, very prevalent in my marriage. So I was like, oh, he's not one of them. He provides for us. So how can he be? That was
It's
my
not
question. That is how I would
You're
validate.
rationalizing it.
I'm rationalizing it and I'm validating that and
Yes.
saying, it's okay. It's okay. Because I was like, I've seen worse. I've seen people go through worse than me. I've seen them being in marriages where there's been physical abuse, where there's been, where they have financially held power and everything. I'm not in that state. So that was how I was always rationalizing it. And that was seen, I think, after my honeymoon phase of my marriage, because this is who he was. But I refused to believe that because I had idolized him, honestly, because for who he was, because the public persona and the image that he showed everyone outside was just so perfect. People fell in love with him. Narcissists are like that. They're charmers. Women would flock to him. People would flock to him for advice and for everything. And like he was, and everyone thought we were like the perfect one. Little did others know that silently I was taking away too much of his inadequacies and covering it up until the time that I was suffocated by it. Like I told you earlier, not always constantly being the giver depleted me. I wanted someone to pour into my bucket too. And that was emotionally exhausting. I went through emotional abandonment and physical abandonment too. When these things, I faced them. And that's when I realized, oh my God, like what's going on here? I feel empty from inside. Why is it I don't feel any kind of warmth and an emotional safety? Why do I feel like in fight and flight mode every time? Why is it that what I do, if I'm so cautious about editing myself, because what if I upset him? And I went through 5 days of non-talking, gaslighting there, silent treatment for 4 days, 5 days, 1 week. Fridays, weekends were the most scary one because I had to spend time with him. What if I said something? What if I did something? Walking on eggshells. And then he would check me out for 4 days and 5 days. Where will I go? Who will I share? What will I talk? And I'd made my world so insular because I trusted, believed, I gave everything to that one person, that he became my anchor, my bedrock, my everything. But I never got that from him. It's just that I made it for him, right? I realized whatever I was doing was me doing it. But there was never something where he expected or wanted. The only thing that he wanted, I saw, was he wanted a family that could be raised while he does what he does. He wanted everything taken care of, everything being perfect for himself and outside. And I was like, what am I disrupting now? Because I'm going to disrupt something, because I came at a point where I said, I am not giving anymore because I have nothing else to give. I'm empty now. I have no more. You see, that shifted. That changed. Like, what do you mean you have nothing else and no more? Right? Because now the conversation was no longer about me being needy or me being, oversensitive. It was about, no, this is what I need. This is just bare basic minimum for me to survive. Right now, I'm in survival mode. I don't want to be surviving. I want to be thriving. And I want emotional safety, which I'm not able to get. And that took me 5 years. It was not an easy process because you see, you just brought up fear. There was fear always knocking on my door and saying, you won't be able to do it without him. And I was financially also, since I wasn't working, I was dependent in a way. And financial power was another way of keeping my voice down and keeping who I am down. I was kept away from all of the things that needed for two people to discuss their financial dependence later. I was kept away from it, even though I wanted to do it. I wanted to learn. I wasn't allowed. So emotional abandonment, this financial pressure, physical abandonment, and me feeling at my lowest, where I was at the brink of depression, and I'm coming out for the first time and I'm going to say it, suicide. That was like my turning point. And I said, for who? For whom am I doing this? And this kind of a step, for whom am I taking? And that really shook me up. And I said, nobody's worth it. Just nobody's worth it. I was so judgmental about myself that I had to be so compassionate to myself. And so the process of me realizing and being compassionate, taking away judgment, everything came in together. At one side, I would be knocked down by hard judgment. And at the other side, I would be like, no, but you know what? You were trying your best. You were trying your best to raise a family, to be the person that he depended upon. And that's when it came to me. Who did you rely on? Did you have anyone to rely on? Because you didn't even rely on yourself. You questioned your ability every step of the way. So it wasn't an easy process, but it was a lot of peeling the layers one by one and being very patient, very compassionate to myself, which I really learned what it was to be. And then began the process and the journey of separating both together and saying that, you know what? A lot of those things that I had formed and idolized is not the person who is. So when they are showing you who they are, just accept them for who they are. Stop idolizing them. Stop putting, what if I do this? What if I say that? What if? No, that is who they are. What if is not going to work, because when they are ready to change, they will change. You cannot put all your eggs in one basket and hoping that one day it'll happen. That one day will form to many years. And who is the one who's going to lose out? You. So that's where it all began. It was a slow process, tedious process. It was very, very emotionally draining because this was a completely new me, completely venturing out on my own, trying to get a foothold, but knowing the fact that there was a self-doubt in me that I had every time say, it's okay, one day at a time. It's okay, you're having this doubt. Let's not talk about the whole blueprint, the whole goal. Let's just take that one tiny little step. You took that one step today. Just take that one step. That is all that matters, because taking that one step and adding that is where you will be, where you are. So don't be overwhelmed by the whole bigger picture.
And I think what you said about this, accept someone for who they are, because I think that's a big part of the healing journey. It's the what ifing, like you said, and if I did this, and really looking at right now, here's this person's patterns. This is a pattern. This isn't a one-off event. This is a pattern. And knowing you are powerless to change that pattern. And really that's hard. And coming into therapy, you start telling the truth about all the things you've minimized, rationalized, denied. It's now like the truth telling with safety and compassion and grace, and really working on having the safety to tell the truth. Like you said, you came in, it was vulnerability. Like, okay, this is the first step. And that can take some time. There's still wanting to protect underneath like this idea of family or what the person thinks of your partner. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, I'm keeping myself stuck doing that. I'm now going into the dark hole. Suicidal ideation, I want to normalize for people. You mentioned that, and thank you for sharing that. It can be very common when you feel like you've lost your voice, you've been suppressed, you've been repressed, because it's all living inside your nervous system. And people don't talk about that because they're afraid to, of what people are going to think. Do you want to say a little more about that?
Yeah, sorry if I might sound a little bit gender gentrified over here, but women as such always been known to, and also we've been patterned by a societal, by what we've learned through patterns that have been passed through us, and what we've seen. And we've kind of somewhere inbuilt that in our DNA, right? And being the nurturer, which we are, we've always been told, hold the silence, keep the peace, and just let a few things go, right? If you can ignore and let a few things go, go. When did that few things add up? When did that few things amount to you losing yourself or you taking emotional abuse, which cannot be seen, but it is so debilitating for a woman's mental health because it chips away, erodes away herself, right? Because a woman always questions herself. I always question myself. Am I good enough in the eyes of my husband? Am I good enough in the eyes of my kids? Am I a better enough parent? What else can I do? And the peer, you see other women around you. Each one is talking about how good they are, what a super women they are, and they're handling this and they're handling that, and they have these beautiful smiles, but they're going through everything from inside. Don't want to show that, right? We are victims of our own story because we built it and we normalized it. And I know that I did that too. Because for me, it was strength and courage. Knowing the fact that how much the capacity of taking in struggle, I would measure my capacity to take in struggle. I would measure like how good I am under those extenuating, challenging circumstances. Because that was strength to me. That is how I grew up as a family, and that is how I saw. So I didn't know anything else. I just didn't know anything else. Again, you're talking, it's like generational trauma, which you're going to break. I didn't know that. Everyone saw me that way. I was by default, go to this person because she's going to help you. Didn't matter who it was, friends, family, and this person. This person is the anchor, right? So I felt that I am the person who can take care of it, can do everything, can be right, can fix everything. How can I be the one falling and crumbling? Am I weak? Am I a nobody because I'm unable to pick up the pieces and bring it together? I'm not the person who would break a family. And that was my thing. I broke a family. I broke a marriage. I did not listen to my husband and do right by him. I did not listen to his family and do right by them because that's how they felt. I felt like, oh no, this cannot be me. This drove me to the fact that I was having these nightmares about me not being good enough. I would be in a fetal position, coiled in a room, not wanting to meet anyone because I was embarrassed of myself. I was so embarrassed of myself that I couldn't keep this family together. That laid the most heavily on me because I was raising two kids and those two kids were two boys. And I didn't want to look like a failure. Failure was not part of my dictionary. And failure is what led me to suicide. Failure was what led me to think that I'm not good enough. What is the use of really living a life like this when I'm unable to give emotional safety and keep this family together? I took the whole thing on me. I felt like I was accountable for the pieces falling apart, not
it's all on you.
understanding. Yeah, it was all on me. It was all on me. So when there's generational trauma already working in place, what are you going to do? You're just going to follow that same path. And my path was, it's the end. It's the end of the road for me. And what's the end of the road? Well, I was spiraling down. I kept questioning. I kept spiraling. I call this my black hole. I went into the black hole. It was horrible. But I thought that the black hole was my answer because I thought that was my fix. That's how I saw when I thought about suicide was, that's my fix. That's the ultimate answer to everything. Not realizing the fact that somewhere I was pushed to that point. That was my breaking point. I was pushed to that point. Was also because I saw my vulnerability as a weakness, that I spoke up. Hence, I deserve this now. I equated it that way. I deserve it now because I spoke up. I should have been silent. I should have adjusted. I should have agreed to all the terms and conditions that were laid out. I should have held it together for another 5 more years and called it quits when the kids are out and they're grown up enough. Because my kids were teens at that time. It was just during COVID. So you see how I was doing that?
That makes sense. And you're speaking to a lot of people that are currently in this situation and feel the same way. So this is why you're sharing your story, because it matters. And this is why you're empowering other people to step into the healing journey so they can find their voice, find their worth and value, work through that, the dark abyss, the dark hole that we can get into. And I wish we had so much more time because I feel like we just touched the surface. Okay, couple of things. One is, did you read any books that were really inspirational for you?
Yes. So at that time when I was thinking about coaching, it opened up a world where I loved was my world of books. And I love psychology, sociology has always been mine. And I was in the path of healing, self-growth, development. So I was reading a lot, and some of those books that I read were all the way from, I read books on CBT. I would do
That's
that.
cognitive behavioral therapy for those
cognitive
folks that are
behavioral
wondering what
therapy.
that is.
Yes.
Was there one that spoke to you in particular? Like if you could share one book,
The
not CBT.
CBT Toolbox.
Okay. CBT
The CBT
Toolbox.
Toolbox. Yeah,
Okay.
I read that. Neil Donald Walsh's
Conversations
book,
with God.
Conversations with God.
I've recommended those to so many clients.
And
It's
you know what? I read that book when I was 20. And after that, I didn't read it, even though I recommended it to many people. But I reread that book again and again and again. And every time that I read the book, I found something new, just about me or just about life or just about how I want my life to look like. It kind of was very perfect timing. So I think it looped in really well. But I would say like that book really helped me, nurtured me, and gave me the kind of balm that I needed at that time. I read many other books, so many books I read, but I would recommend these 2 books that I hold very dearly and that helped me through my journey.
Yeah. Conversations with God is excellent. It's been around a long time, but it's a great book. Where can people find you if they're like, oh, I really enjoyed this conversation?
You can check me out on my website, thrivealter.com. On Instagram and Facebook, I am called as Thrive Transform. And I'm also there on LinkedIn as Thrive Transform. And people can reach me also through my email at charu@thrivetransform.org. And like I said, if you go in any of my websites, especially right now, I'm doing very good series for people undergoing through divorce and what are the steps and what does divorce look like. And I'm doing a series, a very interesting series. So for people who are in that phase where they're going through, I would call it divorce, but I would also say transition in their life. And you've lost your identity. I would say follow that right now because there's so much of things that I talk about. People will be able to relate with it. They would take away the nuggets that they need because let's take away shame. My thing is take away shame if it hasn't worked out because it's not just one person or one thing that it did. Probably there wasn't alignment. Probably that's all that you knew at that time. So taking away shame by talking about it is a very empowering thing. And I would encourage all your listeners, if you can go on Instagram, Thrive Transform, and listen to the latest series. I'm doing this whole podcast.
Thank you so much, Charu, for being here. I'm grateful for the work you're doing in the world and the time and energy you spent with us today.
Thank you so much, Kristen. This was just wonderful on a Monday morning to have a conversation like this. It's very empowering. It brings strength. And to all the other listeners who are sitting and who are scared and fearful, know that just give a little bit of belief in you and you will see how that belief glows into a beautiful spark.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, Boice.com. Thanks and have a great day.